Today is May 22nd. Welcome to Big Book Daily. My name is Rob. I am an alcoholic. It is a thrill, honor, and joy to be here with you today as we journey through the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous and the 12 Steps and 12 Traditions. Today out of the core text, we are going to continue our journey through Into Action from Chapter 6, pages 76 and 77. We're going to finish Personal Story from Section 2, They Stopped in Time, Story 17, Window of Opportunity, pages 429 through 432. And finally, out of the 12 and 12, we are going to continue our journey through tradition number 4 by reading page 149, finishing that tradition today. Some short reading today, guys, but hey, it's all good stuff. Can't wait to talk about it. So let's go ahead and get to it. All right, my friends. So if you remember from yesterday's reading Into Action, man, some great stuff. Talked about the 5th step promises. So when we finally find that right person, for me, it was somebody that I really trusted, somebody that I admired in the program. And I told him not just 95% of my struggles, but all of my struggles. I had so much fear beforehand, but I realized, I can't half-heartedly do this. Half measures avail me nothing, so I better tell him everything. So finally, when I put that fear aside and told him everything, again, he treated me with grace. He thanked me for confiding in him, gave me a big old hug, pointed out some things that, I needed to understand about me that I didn't even see in myself. We prayed together, and he told me a little bit of his story. And by the time I drove home, as I said yesterday, it was absolutely like a spiritual experience. I just remember being in the car, just grinning from ear to ear, thanking the God of my understanding, because I never had done anything like this. I'd always been kind of a shy introvert and always been so fearful of what others thought of me. And this was the first time that I was almost, just completely exposed to another human being's mercy. And turned out I was fearful for years for nothing. That was fear, right? False evidence appearing real. That was, for me, the beginning of healing, right? I think I might have read the Big Book one time before this, but I didn't remember there being promises after the 5th step. So in rereading this once again yesterday and today, these 5th step promises, every line on page 75, I have personally experienced. Right here, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we've taken the step withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. I love that line. We can be alone, at peace, at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. That feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel that we are on the broad highway walking hand in hand with the Spirit of the universe. I felt every bit of that. And then right after that, the next paragraph, okay, it's time to start working on step 6. We look back real carefully at the previous 5 steps. Have we put everything in place that we need to? Have we done anything as thoroughly as possible as we have? If so, hey, we still got some more work to do. And that's where we're leading off today. Again, we're reading 76 and 77. If we can answer to our satisfaction, we then look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. Are we now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable? Can He now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something we will not let go, we ask God to help us to be willing. When we're ready, we say something like this: My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defective character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. We have then completed step 7. Now, we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of all the persons we'd harmed and to whom we are willing to make amends. We made it when we took the inventory. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal, and now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage done in the past. We attempt to sweep away the debris which has accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will and run the show ourselves. If we haven't the will to do this, we ask until it comes. It was agreed at the very beginning we would go to any lengths for victory over alcohol. Probably there'll still be some misgivings. As we look over the list of business acquaintances and friends we have hurt, we may feel diffident about going to some of them on a spiritual basis. Let us be reassured. To some people, we need not and probably should not emphasize the spiritual feature on our first approach. We might prejudice them. At the moment, we are trying to put our lives in order. But this is not an end in itself. Our real purpose is to fit ourselves to be of maximum service to God and the people about us. It is seldom wise to approach an individual who still smarts from our injustice to him and announce that we've gone religious. In the prize ring, this would be called leading with the chin. Why lay ourselves open to being branded fanatics or religious bores? We may kill a future opportunity to carry a beneficial message, but our man is sure to be impressed with a sincere desire to set right the wrong. He's going to be more interested in a demonstration of goodwill than in our talk of spiritual discoveries. We don't use this as an excuse for shying away from the subject of God. When it will serve any good purpose, we are willing to announce our convictions with tact and common sense. The question of how to approach the man we hated will arise. It may be he has done us more harm than we have done him, and though we may have acquired a better attitude toward him, we are still not too keen about admitting our faults. Nevertheless, with a person we dislike, we take the bit in our teeth. It is harder to go to an enemy than to a friend, but we find it much more beneficial to us. We go to him in a helpful and forgiving spirit, confessing our former ill feeling and expressing our regret. Under no condition do we criticize such a person or argue. Simply, we tell them that we will never get over drinking until we have done our utmost to straighten out the past. We are there to sweep off our side of the street, realizing that nothing worthwhile can be accomplished until we do so, never trying to tell him what he should do. His faults are not discussed. We stick to our own. If our manner is calm, frank, and open, we will be gratified with the result. Man, 2 loaded pages right there. Great stuff. Can't wait to come back to this in a minute. So if you recall from Window of Opportunity, our friend was about to show up to a meeting and he's still struggling. He's barely hanging on, going to these meetings, but maybe not going to as many as he particularly needs. And, not really sharing or anything like that as much as he wants to. So he goes to one of his Tuesday or Thursday meetings and nobody's there. Finally, as he's about to leave, another man shows up and goes, "Hey, should we have a meeting? Just the 2 of us?" Well, our friend decides to do that, which was a very good decision on his part. And he finally tells this sounds like a veteran in AA, what he's struggling with. As I was saying before, it was almost like a 5th step for him, right? He bears his soul to this other friend in the fellowship. And his friend, listens the entire time and goes, "Yeah, I remember feeling that way." And then he says, "You don't have to drink over it," which was a revelation to our friend here. He thought that it was because of these outside circumstances in life that you had to drink. But there's always a choice. It says right here on the 429, "Here was a man telling me that, independent of my life situation, I did not have to drink. If I stuck with AA, I could stay sober under any and all conditions. He gave me hope, and in many ways, he symbolized the door through which I finally walked into AA." So again, our friend, he goes back to school, and now he's at a point where he's not drinking anymore. He's a little afraid, right? This is his first time back without drinking. But guess what? He goes back he starts getting involved in some other friends in recovery. I don't know if there was a group there before, but there certainly is one after he spent some time there. And he plays a big part in getting a fellowship together at the university. So it's almost like the God of my understanding used him to make a difference in the lives of others at that university. But anyways, so we'll go ahead and finish off page 429 through 431, finishing this story today. After graduation, I attended law school. I arrived to find an AA that was very different from that which I had grown accustomed. I was sure that I would get drunk because those people weren't doing it right. My sponsor back at college, aware of my propensity for finding fault, assured me that if my new friends were not doing it right, it was my obligation to show them how. So I did. Driven by fear and conceit, I set out to remake AA in my image. I am certain that if membership had depended upon being liked, I would have been expelled. After some time, I called my sponsor to report my progress. He stopped me short with a simple question. These people who aren't doing it right, are they staying sober? I admitted that despite their failings, they were staying sober. Good, he said. You told them what AA is. Now it's time for you to listen to figure out how they are staying sober. I followed that suggestion and began to listen. Slowly but surely, some wisdom and humility began to creep in. I became more teachable. I found God working all around me where previously I was sure that I had been alone. When I opened my eyes enough to see the miracle, I found that it was right in front of my face. I was growing in God's love. I was fortunate to have an opportunity to spend time abroad during law school. That was something that I had dreamed of doing while drinking. But when push came to shove, I drank. Now sober, I have been in meetings in probably a dozen countries and have always been amazed at the message that transcends all linguistic and cultural differences. There is a solution. Together, we can live soberly, joyously, and freely. My life has been one great joy. I am now 33 years old, and God willing, in 1 month I will celebrate my 14th sober AA anniversary. I am surrounded by loving friends on whom I depend and who depend on me. I have reconciled with my parents, from whom I had been estranged. My life is filled with laughter again, something that alcohol had taken away. I was married shortly after my 9th anniversary to a loving woman. 1 week before my 12th anniversary, our son was born. Through him, I learned more about unconditional love, the value of wonder, and the sheer joy of being alive. I have a wonderful job that most days I appreciate. I am active in AA service work and have both a sponsor and several sponsees with whom it is a privilege to work. All of those are gifts from God. I express my gratitude by enjoying them. I once knew a woman who was crying before a meeting. She was approached by a 5-year-old girl who told her, "You don't have to cry here. This is a good place. They took my daddy and they made him better." That is exactly what AA did for me. It took me and it made me better. For that, I am eternally grateful. Great stuff, guys. Absolutely great stuff. And finally, out of the 12 and 12, we are on tradition number 4. We're going to be finishing it today. Each group should be autonomous except in matters affecting other groups or AA as a whole. And yesterday, we realized that this corporation, this AA kind of empire that they were trying to build, and I'm not sure exactly where this was, maybe with the best intentions, has turned out to be so convoluted and confusing that, as the book said yesterday, all the confusion of how things are run and what we're supposed to do with all the clients replaced the serenity of AA, the serenity of the group as a whole. So again, we're going to be reading page 149. When that lifted, a wonderful thing happened. The head promoter wrote the foundation office. He said he wished he'd paid some attention to AA experience. Then he did something else that was to become an AA classic. It all went on a little card about golf score size. The cover read, Middleton Group 1, Rule number 62. Once the card was unfolded, a single pungent sentence leaped to the eye. Don't take yourself too damn seriously. Thus, it was that, under Tradition 4, an AA group had exercised its right to be wrong. Moreover, it had performed a great service for Alcoholics Anonymous, because it had been humbly willing to apply the lessons it learned. It had picked itself up with a laugh and gone on to better things. Even the chief architect, standing in the ruins of his dream, could laugh at himself. And that is the very acme of humility. I love that. Don't take yourself too seriously. That is one that, even in sobriety, I still make mistakes. Lord, I make mistakes. We're still human. Thank God it says in the big book, we claim spiritual progress, not spiritual perfection. These are perfect ideals, these steps, right? They're going to be something we always have to strive for. It doesn't mean we're going to get it right every day. There's a lot of funny mistakes I've made, and and a lot of the folks that come into the room, that's where all the laughter comes from. They talk about their funny drunkalogs or even some funny mistakes they made in sobriety. Again, if you don't know where to find the meeting in a church or a basement somewhere, just follow the laughter. You're going to find a bunch of people, hopefully, that do not take themselves too seriously. And going back to Into Action real fast, I know we're running up on time here. We see on we see on page 76 and 77, oh boy, there's a bunch of steps here. Step 6 and 7, and then eventually step 8. But it's all laid out here. These are all action steps. Step 6 on 76. Are we now ready to let God remove all the things which we've admitted are objectionable? Now, does that mean that after step 6, if you don't have everything perfectly right, you can't move on to step 7? No. There are some things that we don't want to let go, maybe, or we subconsciously don't want to let go. We just pray at this point, at the bottom of that paragraph, we ask God to help us to be willing. And if we're not even willing yet, God, please help me to be willing to be willing. Then step 7. I love this prayer. I try to pray this every morning. I need to do it more often than I do. God, I pray that you'd have my Creator. I'm now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me the strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. Then right into step 8. Now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. All right, we have a list now based on step 4 of all the people we've harmed and whom we are willing to make amends. Now we go about our fellows to try to repair the damage done. So in this case, I always love the breakdown that Joe and Charlie do. If you've never listened to the Joe and Charlie tapes, they are wonderful. There's even a workbook that you can get on Amazon that comes with it. I have done a lot of note-taking on that. But they basically list people in different columns, right? And I've talked about this before on the podcast. If you're not willing to make amends to them yet, put them in the maybe pile. And then hopefully over time, you can shift everything over to the okay, I am willing pile. Sometimes it takes time, sometimes it takes prayer. Now, the ones you are willing to do, you can get those done right away. Then you can kind of shift your columns over a little bit. Maybe the one that you said you would never make amends to, you can now put them in the maybe column. Or maybe the maybe column to, okay, I'll do it now. It was a very convoluted way I just explained it, so the way they say it is much, much easier. But here we're seeing practical steps being done. And that's what I love about the big book. It is so practical. For me, it's God for Dummies. I love the big book, and I try to read that every morning. But this one also kind of breaks things down in a way that I can apply to my life today. And again, loaded pages 76 and 77. And finally, I will hush after this. I love the last few pages of 430 and 431. And I love what the sponsor says to our friend here. So our friend here is like, oh, they're not doing AA right. They're not doing this recovery thing right. I'll admit, I've been around people that analyze other people's program and criticize and go, oh, they're not doing it right. Yet, that person is staying sober. So I love what the sponsor says. Hey, okay, you told them how it's worked for you. You told them what AA is. Now it's time for you to listen and to figure out how they are staying sober. So don't get me wrong. For me, I'll only speak of my own experience here. The 12 steps, having a sponsor, getting accountability, the fellowship itself, praying all the time, that's helped me stay sober. But when I see somebody in a meeting that maybe hasn't done it exactly like I have, I still try to listen to what they have to say because they're sober and something they are doing, or at least God through them, is working. And they have something of value to say that I could definitely use in my life. So that's being teachable. And then finally, a beautiful image on 431. I once knew a woman who was crying before the meeting. She was approached by a 5-year-old girl who told her, and this breaks my heart because I have a 6-year-old girl. You don't have to cry here. This is a good place. These fellowships, they're a good place, at least they've been in my experience. All right, she says, they took my daddy and they made him better. I love that. I could totally see my daughter saying that. This program, the God of my understanding through this program, let me put it that way. He's taken me and he's made me better. Whew, beautiful. So my friend, if you are sober today, you need to hear me when I say that you are a miracle. You're a miracle. It said right here in the reading today, expect to see those miracles. They're right in front of us. If we're sober today, we're miracles. I mean, if nothing else goes right, we can celebrate that. So hey, we've been given another set of 24 hours. Let's keep looking for those miracles. And I'll keep thanking the God of my understanding for them. As always, I don't speak on behalf of AA or NA or Al-Anon or any other sect, denomination, religion. I'm just a friend in recovery, this lifeboat of recovery, and I'm glad that you're with me. If we were given another set of 24 hours, I look forward to seeing you back here tomorrow.